dude, I'm literally I'm salivating at this opportunity because you're over here like 1,000 steps ahead of where I want to be as far as these DAOs are concerned and these nodes and all this extra stuff. I'm like, and your channel name is perfect. It's like a match made in heaven. Passive aggressive income. I'm like, oh, dude.
It's really funny. Thank you for that, by the way. I appreciate it. Yeah,
Hmm.
someone I was trying to so I started posting stuff on Twitter, and I made this big OHM post, and someone's like, you should start a YouTube channel, and I thought, Twitter's pretty limiting, so I can that makes sense. So I'm like, well, I don't know what to
Hmm.
call it. I have no clue what to call. So I just started putting out some polls, like, what do you guys think I should call this? And I still wish I knew who it was. It was some guy who was a doctor, believe it or not. He's like, you should call it passive aggressive income. And I laughed when I saw that. I got to use that, man, because it's so memorable. You don't want to be
Hmm.
passive aggressive unless it comes to your income, right?
Wow. It's like literally perfect. Like I'm going to be shilling that at the top of my lungs in the video I'm making today. So really,
Oh,
I'm gonna enjoy that, bro.
you're awesome.
Yeah,
Thanks, friend.
without a
Appreciate it.
doubt, of course. And
And
see,
Showtime goes without saying, man. Nice to meet you properly. Ironically, I've been a fan of your channel since it started, which wasn't a year ago.
A little while ago.
So yeah, I'm a new fanboy, but yeah, massively appreciative of your work, and I'm glad Bull has now converted because I jumped on a little earlier, and your work educated me, and I think you're going to find there's going to be a lot of people who will want to throw their flowers to you already, who are going to join this call, and I think you also understand there's still so much time for people to really accumulate the results that you've managed to get them into now. So yeah, prepare yourself for a lot of people who are going to be indebted to you, man.
Oh,
hoopla, hoopla,
thank
pure
you.
hoopla.
Thank you. I'm a fan of you guys as well. So the love is mutual. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Let's kill it, man.
And
Ladies
never
and
get any of that.
gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, quite literally, no pun intended. It is showtime. Hello, my friend. And hello, everybody. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon from wherever you're from across the world. We have a very special guest. He goes by the name of Showtime, and he has this incredible YouTube channel by the name of Passive Aggressive Income. As you know, myself personally, I'm Mr. Aggressively Average. So when I heard that name, I'm like, all right, we got to bring him in. We got to bring him in because he's gonna make sure that we all retire accidentally,
Ah,
right?
yep. There you go.
So before we get started with anything else, man, would you like to give a brief little introduction as to just who you are?
Thanks for the introduction, and well, sort of introduction. And I've been following, your channel for a long time, and I got into crypto in August of last year. And actually, I'm a big silver bug. The original
Mhm.
reason I got in on crypto was because I thought, you know what, this thing is so volatile. I could probably trade this back and forth and get free silver. Like I could do that. Like I think, everybody thinks they could be a trader, of
Mhm.
course, right? But I thought, okay, I can make at
Mhm.
least some money on this and figure out how to get free silver. So that was kind of my original reason for getting into it. I thought silver was the cat's meow, and it is in some fashion. But once I got into crypto, I'm like, wait a minute, this is bigger than just trading something back and forth, right? And of course,
Yes.
realized, XRP is kind of the digital gold in a lot of ways that we're well aware of, and started researching that. And one thing led to another, and then I found your channel, and I'm like, okay, man, like, this dude knows how to do research, right? I mean, you got a lot of
You do.
influencers and a lot of different projects, and there seems to be a lot of influencers in XRP specifically. But when I think of, I hate to use that word influencers, by the way, but when you
No,
have these
no, no. But
people in XRP, like you stood out, with all the other folks that exist there. So started following that, got bit by that bug. One thing led to the next, and found out about master nodes and how that went into just different other types of nodes and staking. And this is, of course, DeFi isn't that new at this or that old at this point, so it's still fairly a new
mhm.
concept. So I thought I got bit when I went down the XRP rabbit hole. I really got bit when I went down the DeFi rabbit hole.
Nice, nice, nice. Now, something I'll just ask, but before we continue, Which one's your favorite? Is it masternodes, DAOs? Which one do you really look at and you say, okay, this one's a heavy hitter. This one is what I really like.
Whatever I can make money on.
That's the best
I mean,
answer.
legitimately. Like, okay, here's the thing. Like, I love it when a project has a solid team. I want to see, sometimes teams are anonymous, I get it. But I like to see like a solid team. I like to see the people know, they understand blockchain, right? Like, oftentimes I'll reach out to a CEO of a project with questions, not because like those questions are super deep, but I want to see how the CEO and the developer handles himself. Like, does he really know what he's talking about? So I like to see a really good, solid team. Ideally, you want to see like a good use case for the project. I mean, that would be great. It's great when you have a project that solves a really big problem and you get wealthy as a kind of a side result of that, right? So to answer your, I'm kind of tongue in cheek with that answer, but it's kind of true. I mean, at the end of the day, I love projects that are really doing something innovative and unique. Strongblock and Olympus and all these other type of DAOs and staking. And I mean, I kid you not, I got a list like this long of, that didn't look very big, did it? I got this big, massive list of all these projects. I find like 2 or 3 new projects a day. And it's just, things change so quickly in tech, because I have an IT background. Things change so quickly in tech. They change even quicker in crypto, as you're well aware of.
Yeah, yeah. And dude, part of the reason I'm really excited to have you here today is that when I found crypto, I said to myself, okay, this is an opportunity for retail investors specifically to put their stake in the game and essentially become venture capitalists with a small amount of money, right?
Yep.
Whether it's a couple $100, a couple $1,000, tens of thousands. Us retail investors have never had the opportunity to decide for ourselves without the quote unquote investor protection restrictions that the government puts on us to place our bets, if you will. So that's why crypto really made me excited when I first got in 2016. And what I look at when I look at crypto, I think, okay, this is a financial glitch in the matrix right here. But I think you found the glitch within the glitch with what you're doing. So what I'll say is, before we continue, and this is a concern of plenty of people, is what are some of the risks involved with some of these projects? Because to me, I'm looking at like some of these DAOs and some of these master nodes, and I say, okay, these things, like, they look unsustainable. It seems kind of absurd and ungodly, if you will, what is possible. How do you go about vetting some of these projects?
Yeah, I mean, I had someone today ask me, what did they say? Oh, we're talking about Wonderland Time, which is a fork of OHM, versus OHM, and they're like, what's safer? I'm like, well, safe. We have to define what safe is, like, because we're in crypto, right? I mean, you see every day people are getting rug pulled, or,
Yes.
unfortunately, if you were an XRP at a certain time, you got hammered by the SEC with the price drop. So, I mean, when we talk about what safe is, we have to kind of remember what the asset class we're in is, right? I mean, this is something like you said, this is like a glitch in the matrix. I mean, the average guy is getting screwed. The average guy and girl is getting screwed here by a lot of things with the traditional financial system. So whether this is controlled or not is another conversation, but this is at least at minimum a competitor to that legacy financial system. So anything that is a competitor is going to get crushed by the competitor, or at least they're going to attack each other, right?
Yes.
So, when we look at the risks, we see the kind of stuff happening in crypto where we see, people are getting rug pulled or regulations are coming. The beautiful thing about crypto is because it's decentralized and it's worldwide, one government can't necessarily bring crypto down. They could certainly price suppress and do all sorts of things like with XRP, but they cannot destroy crypto. Sorry?
We saw that just today with the India news, and they're trying to ban it too after China. So it's, to me, I'm just like, okay, the institutions need to buy some crypto now.
Yeah, they needed to get in at a lower price, man. I mean, how many times has China banned crypto? I haven't even been in crypto as long as you and some other people, and I think I've seen it 3 or 4 times, right? So, the thing is, it's like, okay, because this is the Wild West and it's unregulated, of course people can create a DAO with a treasury and rug pull the treasury, and it's happened with a few of them. that out there. And of course, with nodes, you see something like StoreX, SRX, built on XDC, a great, project with so much promise that the team just screwed it up. I'm not here to attack
Yes.
anybody, but I think a lot of the people in the community are aware of what's in this community, I should say anyway, about what's going on. So you could have a team just, man, bad entrepreneurs or bad decisions. Because I run businesses, and sometimes one bad decision it can have some severe consequences. So you've obviously got regulations are always a risk, right? I mean, that's kind of the sandbox we're playing in, and rug pulls are a risk. That's the sandbox we're playing in. I always say, risk and return. Little risk, little return. Big risk, big return. As far as the regulations concerned, I think we got some time before that, but I think risk and return are relative.
So, and I'm really glad that you went about describing that, because for me, I'll say what is safe, right? I read a book, I think in 2012, called Risky is the New Safe by Randy Gage, which quite honestly completely changed the direction and the perspective of my life. And I knew 10 years ago that there was going to be a moment in time like this, where everything was in a bubble, currency crisis everywhere, massive inflation. Nothing makes sense. Fantasy economics is at play, right? So the safest thing people think to do is to just hold your cash in a savings account on your 0.1% interest and go to town. Well, in reality, what that means is you've lost maybe 40% of your purchasing power in the last year. So when we talk about safe, risky, quite honestly, is the new safe. Just look at Bitcoin's returns, Ether's returns, even XRP, which has been underperforming. It's outperformed plenty of the other safe alternatives. So what I'll say is, and just a quick disclaimer to people that are watching or people that will be watching the replay later, is, this isn't something that you should put all your life savings in, what we're about to discuss, but it is something that I believe you should learn about and gain some exposure in, as I have recently done, whether it's like a small 1 to 2%, maybe up to 5%, but something that you should look into and just get educated on at the very least. So thank you for saying that, my friend.
Yeah, you bet. People are, they're getting crushed right now, and they've been getting screwed for a long time. They're getting even more crushed over this last year and a half. People are losing their jobs for all sorts of reasons. You have inflation's running hotter than ever. What is it? I keep hearing different numbers. I think it's 40% US dollars in existence were printed last year. All right. You got
within the last 18 months.
Yeah. So crazy. Like, think about, so first it was millions, billions. Now we're talking trillions. What's next, right? So you've got inflation, people losing their jobs. You've got the loss of all sorts of different types of freedoms, and you've got rising taxes. And you couple that with the fact that, you got cargo that can't even get into the country. Like, people are getting hammered on all sides. So, we're in this this situation where, and it's funny you say that, because when I'm talking to family members, and I'm not here to convince them, but they got into crypto, not because I gave them like this big salesman speech. I just basically started explaining like my experience, right? And one of the things I tell them is like, risky is the new safe, and safe is the new risky. Like, what you think you knew is the old world. It's not like, that's not going to move you. That's not going to propel you forward in this new world. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up.
Without a doubt, man, without a doubt. But I think most of the people here, we're about to get into why we're all here. We need to learn how to make some passive aggressive income. And before we get into some of the opportunities at play here, I'm just going to briefly ask you, because I'm even a little confused as to this. What exactly are DAOs? And DAOs is short for a decentralized autonomous organization. What exactly is a DAO, and how does it work?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting, because you know how we have slang terms, like we have words that actually have meanings, and we have people who spin off those words and they put their own meaning to it. So a DAO, in short, like you said, decentralized autonomous organization, which essentially is a self-governance system in crypto, where it changes to the code of whatever project we're talking about. We'll just talk about OHM in this case. they can only come about via governance vote. That's actually what a DAO is, and it still is. But what Olympus did with OHM was they brought some things into Olympus that kind of now when people use the word DAO, it kind of means what Olympus did in some fashion. So we'll talk about that for a minute. So Olympus created kind of a unique system where they don't peg the price of OHM to assets. They actually back it by a basket of assets. So you've got DAI, you've got, wrapped ETH, you've got sushi, liquidity pool tokens, soon to be Bitcoin, by the way, all of these assets inside of the treasury, right? So take our currency, the US dollar. We used to be backed by gold. So we used to have this gold standard, which meant you couldn't just willy-nilly print money whenever you wanted to. You actually had to have the gold reserves in your vault. And obviously we ditched that, and we know what happened with that. So when I think of what Olympus is doing with their treasury, I think of the gold standard of crypto being married with DeFi. With some of these protocols, when I first found Olympus, I'm like, man, this thing is like, what are all these terms they're using, all these other, like, what is all this stuff? So I had to stalk this community for a while to kind of put the pieces together. I talk a lot about the 80-20 rule. Pareto's principle can be basically summed down to 80% of your results coming from 20% of your actions. You can't escape this rule. If you pay attention to it, it will be everywhere. So when I think of a project that's a little bit more complex than your average crypto, like OHM and Olympus, I think the 80-20 really is the treasury, right? So how's the treasury work? Where do they get their inflows from? How do they generate revenue? The secret sauce is the treasury, right? So when we think of DAOs, this is kind of this new concept that a lot of people are copying and forking. So the way they're able to achieve these kinds of yields that you see is they got this massive war chest of reserves that they keep inside of their treasury. To date, we're looking at just under $800 million in Olympus's treasury. So, yeah, that's right, 795. So the way they build their treasury, several layers deep. So one of the main ways they're able to is they have a system called bonding. Some protocols that have copied this will call it minting, but it's the same thing. Simply put, Olympus created this really interesting kind of system of a treasury, but they asked the question of how do we incentivize the growth of this treasury by the people who want to participate in this project, which is really a brilliant way of doing it. So the bonding kind of works basically like this. So you can go and look at this on Time, you can look at this on OHM, you can look at this on pretty much anything that has copied it. It's kind of the same concept, but you'll see bonding. You see these list of assets, right? So they say, okay, you give us these assets that we need. We'll take those assets and we'll put them into the treasury. Okay, it's a win for them. And we'll give you a cheaper token price in return, below spot. So they win and you win. They take those assets that you gave them, put it in their treasury. They use that treasury to pay the DAO's expenses. They use it, a big chunk of it actually goes to owning their own liquidity. Most of these DAOs all own like 99.8% of their own liquidity, which is a big deal. You have these flash crashes that don't go to zero because they own the liquidity. So part of it goes to liquidity. Part of it goes to backing every token that's minted. You have handing out the yield, obviously, which is a big draw for people. You have raising the floor price. So if you got a $1,000 token, it could be backed up to $200, okay? Which means it theoretically couldn't really drop below $200. So there's all these things that the treasury does. So the treasury is really the secret sauce. So they build revenue by people giving assets, and in exchange, they get a cheaper token price, okay?
Now,
yes.
I do have a question about the treasury. Where do people go to, like, let's say hypothetically, give assets to this so-called treasury? Like, is it like just in the open market on the exchange? Do you like trade? Or do you go through, like, let's say Olympus, for example, and say, oh, here you go. Like, I like what you're doing. Like, what exactly is going on
So
there?
on Jordan's screen right there, you're going to see something called bond on the left side. When you go under bond, you're going to see all these assets down there, right? You're going to see liquidity pool tokens. You're going to see fracks. You're going to see all sorts of things. These are the assets that you can give them for them to put inside of their treasury. And
Okay.
the percentages you're seeing is the discount on every ohm token that you get, right? So at the top there, you got what, an ohm and a wrapped ETH liquidity pool. This is part of how they're able to own their own liquidity, by the way. You get a 3.91% discount on the spot price for that. So this is the main, source that they get that from.
Okay. Okay, that's interesting. Very interesting. So, but you can just get this, like, let's say if you wanted OHM, you can just buy this in the open market for people that are wondering, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. You can buy it. You could buy it in the open market. There's a lot of ways you can own this token, but yeah, bonding would be kind of the main way if you wanted to give the assets, in exchange for that.
Yeah.
Now, this is not just a DAO presentation, guys. We're also going to be getting into master nodes. And now, Showtime, can you briefly explain what master nodes are to some people that may not know what it is?
Yeah, so you got a lot of different, you have a lot of different type of nodes that exist, right? So, a lot of these blockchains, they need nodes in order to decentralize their infrastructure, right? So, we have a lot of financial instruments that exist today where, unfortunately, they're very centralized. If one entity wants to lock you out, they can do that. So master nodes in general is kind of a way that they are able to, in this world, kind of decentralize the infrastructure and the architecture so that there isn't a single entity that, owns that ability to do whatever they want, lock you out, make changes to transactions, that sort of thing. So you earn generally passive income, some more, some less, depending on how many nodes you run, the project that you choose. So they're rewarding the people who run nodes in exchange, with a token or whatnot. So that way they can have this decentralization, right? So that's the kind of incentivization behind that.
Got it. And for those of you guys at home, I personally just like to look at master nodes as I am a big boss on the network. And because of that, I'm going to get paid a little extra because I invested so much into this. Of course, that's
one way of looking at it.
That's an overly simplified way of looking at it, but it works for me. But let's see. So there are a couple questions and projects specifically that I want to get into that I'm really looking at as standouts, in my opinion. Olympus is what I look at as far as the DAO is concerned as the safest one because, correct me if I'm wrong, was it the first? Was it the first?
Yeah, when we're talking about DAOs in the sense we're talking about, yeah, it was the first.
Okay. And what I'll say is, how do you see OHM's innovation changing the game for crypto in the future? Like, do you think there's a way for regulators to crack down on things like this?
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of people hated and still do on Olympus because their team's anonymous. They're not doxxed. We don't really know who they are other than we know they're Stanford PhDs. And that's about all we know. So some people, I don't want to invest in anything with anonymous teams. Okay, I mean, the entire market follows Bitcoin, which is created by someone we don't even know who it is. We can have conjecture all day long, right? So you're kind of invested in something anonymously, whether you want to or not, indirectly. But so we don't know who these people are. So, when we talk about regulation, of course they could regulate the concept, right? Who the people are, maybe the government knows, maybe they don't. But the risk, I mean, yeah, anything can get regulated, of course. But, this being so decentralized and so worldwide, it would take really a group effort on the nations to do that. And as we well know, governments don't work well. They work even worse when they're coming together. Okay. So, you know what I'm saying? So they're terrible alone. They're even worse when they come together, generally speaking. When I think of so they were the first, Olympus was the first, and you have all of these different forks. Some of them are forks. Most of them are forks. A couple are not. They've kind of copied the concept and they just didn't fork the code. I see a few things that Olympus is doing that's going to be, revolutionary in my mind. So they're coming out with something called Olympus version 2. That's going to do several things. And I'm just going to name a couple, not all of them. But When you bond, well, we were just showing bonding, traditionally, you have to redeem your cheaper token price over the course of 5 days, okay? Because of Ethereum's high gas fees, and we know how crazy that is, what most people do is they'll wait the full 5 days, they'll redeem their OHM, and then they'll stake it as SOHM. That's what happens when you stake it. So what Olympus version 2 is going to do is they're going to pay you in SOHM, so that it's already staked and earning yield while you're waiting to, quote, redeem it over the course of 5 days. So it's earning the moment you start bonding. So that's the first thing that Olympus version 2 is going to do. Another thing they're going to do is they're going to allow you to hold the bonds as NFTs, and they're going to create a second liquid bond market. No details on how that's going to work just yet, but that sounds interesting. We'll see if that grows to Treasury. I just don't know if we know a lot of details on that part. They are.
This is.
What's that?
This is where you lose. This is where you lose me. This is the complex part of crypto, man.
Yeah.
Like so.
Go ahead.
No, so they're going to mint NFTs that correlate to the bond market. What? Can you go back on that?
I don't myself have like a ton of details on that. I just know that somehow they're going to integrate NFTs into bonds. I don't know what that's going to look like. I'm going to make an assumption that that's going to somehow positively impact the Treasury. I just don't know yet. I don't know if maybe somebody knows, they can educate me. That'd be great.
Okay.
Good. Yeah. There's gonna be some things, man. I just don't know. Like, this space is moving so quickly. Sometimes it's like you got to be like an expert in like one protocol just to keep up with them. So those are two things. In response to all these other DAOs, and you'll notice a lot of these DAOs are moving on to other blockchains that are cheaper, which is smart. As drawing, you got the yield and the innovation, all that kind of stuff driving people, but the cheap transaction fees is really driving people. So in response to that, OHM is going to be cross-chain. They're going to create OHM. So that's going to allow you to stake on another blockchain, save on the high gas fees, and enjoy all of the same benefits. Okay, so that's going to, I think, start drawing people back to kind of like the grandfather of DAOs, if you will. And obviously Olympus Pro, I think, will continue to grow. If you don't know, Olympus Pro is basically taking the Treasury system they have and allowing other cryptos that already exist to adopt that, right? You're hearing Strongblock talk about this as well, trying to create a Treasury, and it works so effectively that I think Olympus Pro, I know some others are doing it too, but I think Olympus Pro will be kind of the granddaddy of revenue as a service, as they're calling it.
Nice. Revenue as a service. Now, Showtime, I really like the words that are coming out of your mouth, bro. I heard it. I really like that. I want to provide my revenue as a service.
Hey, man, don't we all want that?
Let me see. So just to touch on something that you mentioned a little earlier, because I have been doing a power deep dive on some of these DAOs recently, and I have come across some interesting projects that have moved to other chains like Phantom, for example. And one I'm specifically fond of is Hector DAO. I'm just curious to know, what's your opinion on that? And Jordan, can you just bring that onto the screen very quickly, just so people understand? Well, I'm a little fond of this project because I think it was just 500,000% APY, which is absurd already. But I believe now it's about 375,000% APY, which it's clearly plummeted, right? Oh, what a shame.
Yeah, we're in free fall, aren't we? It's really funny because you get spoiled with this ridiculous yield in a lot of these projects. So now people look at Olympus like, you only get 8,000%? It's like, I mean, if you know a bank that offers that, let me know. I'll go bank there, right? I like Hector. There's a first mover advantage we can't ignore, right? That first mover advantage. And they're not like the first one on Phantom, but they're, in my opinion, I'm looking at them too, they're really the first one that caught fire on Phantom, in my opinion. So there's definitely a first mover advantage. I own a lot of Hector. I like Hector. It's interesting. They're doing a lot of things with lending and borrowing, and what you'll notice on the screen there is Hector Pro. So they're taking what appears to be the Olympus Pro concept and they're doing their own take on it. So now you got this thing, right? So Olympus created this whole treasury sort of system, and they're saying, hey,
Yes.
we got Olympus Pro, revenue as a service. Why don't you adopt this? Now you have a fork of that, forking that secondary thing called Olympus Pro, and they're calling it Hector Pro, is what it appears like to me anyway. So that's interesting. They're going to have a lending and a borrowing platform, which is unique in of itself. So I like what they're doing. I like that they've implemented governance. The team is going through KYC vetting, by the way, and many of them are going to be doxxed. So I do like this. And one thing that they're doing that has not been done yet, but that has been talked about, is what I just mentioned Olympus version 2 is going to do, which is, if you look at the bonds, you're going to see a whole bunch of different bonds here on Hector, which you're going to see a couple that say 4-4. So what that is those ones specifically are going to earn yield the moment you start bonding. So you don't even have to claim them. They're already earning yield immediately. So they're the first ones. Hector's the first one to do that, but I know other protocols like Olympus version 2 are working on that. So I really like Hector a lot.
Well, this is very interesting. And guys, that some of you were asking, yes, that was almost 400,000% APY. What I'll say is, there's some unique features about this. So the fees are very low. Olympus is currently subject to those Ethereum gas fees. And of course, that's unfortunate. But like you said earlier, they're looking to solve that by being cross-chain and minimizing those fees a lot, which is great. That's excellent to hear.
Yeah.
I love that. But
yeah.
Something very unique about these DAOs that I learned as well, that I didn't even know, but until recently, is that you can unstake at any time, correct? So there's not a lockup period.
Correct.
So you have autonomy over your assets. Now, can you go into that a little bit, just for the audience?
You want me to go into the staking and unstaking?
Staking and unstaking, just a little bit, because it's so.
Yeah,
it's a unique process.
Yeah, so I've made some videos, like tutorials that go over this, but some of these blockchains are a little challenging to get on. You look at Phantom, like, I love Phantom. Phantom's a great blockchain, but the on-ramps are getting hammered. I don't know if it's because of Hector or because of something else, but you try to withdraw out of KuCoin. I know some people, they get stuck for days waiting. So then you got other exchanges that I won't mention that you can get out, but the fees are ridiculous for Phantom. Doesn't make sense. Then you got bridges, and the bridges are taking about a day. So they need to figure out some way to fix this. But in terms of this, I mean, a lot of these blockchains have their own DEXs, their own decentralized exchanges with their own automatic market makers and all that kinds of stuff, like Uniswap. You got PancakeSwap on Binance Smart Chain. Avalanche has Trader Joe, which is a funny name. Phantom has, you can see here, Spirit Swap and Spooky Swap. Yeah. So those
the sketchiest names you could have.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the day where the SEC comes out and says, yeah, we are regulating Trader Joe. And wait for the public's reaction to that one, right?
Regulating coins with their names and their stupid meme icons, and everything's going to have to rebrand. It's going to be great.
Yeah. So anyway, you can use any one of those decentralized exchanges to swap into, if you want to take advantage of these assets on the left where bonding is, you can. If you want to just swap right into whatever the token is, in this case, HEC for Hector, you can do that and then just stake it. I think really the difficult thing is getting on some of these blockchains to begin with, right? There's a lot of bridges that exist. I just made a video on how to buy time, and there's a bridge that I specifically used in that one called Rubik.exchange that works well. So I think as far as cross-chain, that's kind of where the challenge lies. So a lot of non-technical people, it's like, how do I get involved in this? So yeah.
So this is the point where I tell everyone in the audience that's involved, if you have just any questions, please put those questions in the Q&A part of the Q&A feature of the Zoom chat. That way we can organize all the questions and things like that, because I know plenty of you are going to have a lot of them, because I still don't even know what the hell is going on, right? And so it's one of those things where I'm learning just all of you are learning. So we're taking it step by step.
Funny.
But I know that you have on your YouTube channel, Passive Aggressive Income, you have numerous tutorials on plenty of these projects and how to go about setting things up, like OHM time, like you mentioned, and Strong. So guys, if you need some assistance, that channel is excellent for you guys to have that, and Jordan will be putting that in the chat as a resource as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course. Now, we're going to pivot our attention from DAOs over to Strong very quickly, because there's been a lot of controversy over this project over the past, just couple months, things like that. What I'm curious to know is your opinion on Strong. There has been this bit of a Ponzi narrative around it, and due to the payment structure and the how quickly you can get your rewards, and then how you have to lock up Strong in order to create a node and things like that. But then at the same time, I look at the team and they seem pretty credible and things like that. And they're also looking to go into a sustainability, as far as rewards are concerned, approach. Then you'll need an NFT to be able to run master nodes, and that there's a whole lot of things going on around this project, and plenty of people want to know what's good with Strong. Can I trust it? Can I not? I'm curious to know your opinion on it.
Well, I know you and I none of us here offer financial advice, so this is just my opinion.
Yes.
So obviously we know they started out with 10 million tokens. They burnt, 94% or something? There was some sort of vote and reason they did it. I wasn't in the project at the time, so I can't tell you 100% why they burnt that many tokens. So got a little over 500,000 tokens at the moment, but actually circulating, it's like, I think maybe 200K or less. So this has all been going on with like 200,000 or less tokens, which is pretty incredible. They're building something like 1,000 plus nodes a day at this point, and that's just exponentially growing. Yeah, we talked earlier, like when I'm doing research, I want to look at the team. The DAOs we just mentioned, most of them have anonymous teams, good, bad, indifferent, whatever. But Strong's team is not anonymous. Like, David Moss, a lot of these guys came from, see Oracle and Nike and EOSIO, and like they have a credible background. Like these guys understand blockchain. Like I was saying, I talk to CEOs and developers. I want to see how they handle themselves. I want to see, do they know what they're talking about? And one of the guys that stands out as someone who knows he's talking about is David Moss, right? So I do like it from the team's perspective. The whole Ponzi thing, and by the way, without getting too much into this, I know that there is some back and forth with the XRP community and the Strong community. I was very glad that you didn't participate in that. I had a lot of respect for the fact that you did not participate in that.
Because I don't know, I can't possibly know, but I'm open to as many perspectives as possible. And it's like, I can't say one thing or the other. So I'm just curious and open mind.
Yeah. And I really respect that. And I think a lot of people, not everybody, some people legitimately, they understand it and don't like it, but, there's a lot of people that don't understand it and hate it. And I'm like, where's this coming from? Because it was very like, it just seemed really like all of a sudden, all at once, like once Strong hit $1,000, it was like attack. And it was just really strange. So I really appreciate that you were kind of like, on the sidelines and, okay, I'm not going to get involved in that. But, the thoughts as far as it being a Ponzi, I have some thoughts on this. So for something to be a Ponzi, we have to understand what a Ponzi actually is, because people, who live in the echo chamber of crypto, Twitter, and YouTube, they start parroting something without, in my opinion, knowing what it really is. In a Ponzi scheme, we see traditionally someone comes to you and says, hey, give me your money, I'll invest it for you and earn you a return. But what do they do? Instead, they lie to you and they pay earlier investors. That's typically what a Ponzi is. So they need to get someone after you to pay you, and this goes on until someone figures out what the deal is. To me, Strongblock, they're very clear. They're transparent about how they use your Strong tokens. I mean, they're not lying and saying, oh, we're going to use them for this and we use them for that. I mean, they tell you very clearly how they're being used. I would say furthermore, like I said, earlier investors are paid, and you end up having to need an investor after you to get paid. But in the sense of Strong, like you have rewards already accumulated the moment your node is built. Okay, so if a Ponzi is paying somebody earlier, what, now I'm all of a sudden the earlier person too? Like, I don't really, doesn't really make sense to me. So it does, I will say, have Ponzi-like characteristics. But, I'd say, let's be clear. I mean, when someone is the first to do something new and innovative, they're the ones that typically get attacked the most. The fifth or the 10th time it's been duplicated, nobody cares anymore. Look at Olympus is called a Ponzi. Is Hector called a Ponzi? Is Time called a Ponzi? Is any of these other ones called a Ponzi? Like all of a sudden that just sort of disappears once it becomes more normalized, what we would consider to be normalized, right? So in my opinion, when you're doing something new, especially in the DeFi world, I just think you can call practically anything a Ponzi scheme, quite personally. And I also think the fact that you give up your tokens in exchange for a node, that's kind of a new idea. And I don't think that's a reason to call something a Ponzi either. I mean, you give up your tokens to build Gala nodes, Gala Games, which I love that project, by the way. So
Yeah, excellent.
yeah, so you give up your tokens in exchange for the node. They just don't get recirculated in a pool of rewards, right? But you still give up your tokens in exchange. So you have to outlay an initial amount of money for real estate, gold and silver, stocks, bonds. So those would all have to be Ponzi's if you're going to give up your money to get something. That's just typically what you do. So I just think personally, like if the definition is circulating a fixed deflationary amount of tokens around between investors being a Ponzi scheme, then I mean everything in crypto, especially everything in DeFi, would be labeled a Ponzi by definition.
Okay. Interesting. I'm really glad you brought some clarity and light to that, because I'm still learning about Strong and always have a raised eyebrow just to projects in general. I'm just
Sure.
a skeptic because I've seen everything. I've literally seen everything. But
I understand, man. I understand. You got to be careful, of course.
yeah. But what I'll say is there are a couple massive updates coming with Strong, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, some version 2 is coming out, update is coming out, where they're like looking to reduce the rewards or make it more sustainable, if you will. Can forgive me if I'm misspeaking and shed some light on
Oh
that.
no, yeah, I think you're generally right. So I don't have like all the changes in front of me, so I'll just recall this from memory. So excuse me if I get something wrong here, but so they originally, so I got in back in April. Originally, the rewards were 0.2 strong per day, right? So
Okay.
10 days into that, it got halved, and I'm like, oh, shoot. Of course, 0.1 still great, right? So then I want to say back in July maybe or something, they announced another halving, and that's when people just went nuts because there was all these new people that had gotten into it and it got popular. So they obviously abandoned doing that halving, and David's been very clear they're not doing a sudden halving. That's not going to happen. So what's been discussed, because by the way, the CEO, gets in Telegram every Saturday to answer questions. I just think that's awesome that a CEO gives up his Saturday morning every week to do that. But there's been a few things discussed, like a decay model, so it would slowly decay over time, which isn't unusual. I mean, Gala does that. A lot of nodes do that, so that would not be unique to Strongblock. They're also talking
Dilutes
about.
the
Go ahead.
network. Sorry, the diluting rewards as the network gets bigger, essentially. That's something that that's going to happen with Flare Network as well.
Yeah, and in DeFi, that's very common. If you see a new yield farming thing pop up, usually high APY drops over time. Like that's not unusual, especially with liquidity pools and things like that. So they're looking into a decaying model over a period of time. And that would be like nodes are built day one. They're all going to have the same rewards, but they will decay over time, right? So it's not like later people will start over here. They're going to start the same place. And they're looking into possibly building their own blockchain called Strong Chain. No details on that yet, but they're looking at doing some things like on-chain governance and cross-chain nodes and all sorts of different things. They're also looking into maybe a secondary token. I'm thinking maybe some sort of stable coin or something. I'm not sure, but there's some sort of secondary token. I don't know if maybe the current Strong will then be used for governance, majority. Then they're looking into things like node pools. So you would have a pool of different protocols that you would then put your Strong into, and you would get returned a payout in those native tokens, so that the Strong goes in, but it doesn't necessarily come out, right? So there's all these different things. And personally, I mean, my opinion is they're not going to do just one or two things. They're probably going to do all of them.
No, that last point is one of the most interesting things. Is like the Polygon and the ETH 2.0 potential rewards. If I'm not mistaken, that is coming, correct? Like you could earn for having a strong master node like Polygon and ETH.
Yeah, so they have 32 ETH 2.0 nodes, which is a lot.
Mhm.
If you, I think it was
Yes.
30 ETH or something you need to build one. So they got 32 of them,
Mhm.
is what we were told. And they are going to create a pool that you could put your strong in to earn rewards from their ETH 2.0 nodes. Pretty cool,
Mhm.
very pretty interesting. And
Mhm.
the what we were told is they're going through a audit right now, and the ETH 2.0 system should be up somewhere around next week, is what we were told. Don't always
Mhm.
don't take the dates as gospel, because crypto, I mean, something can get delayed weeks. That's just how it works. So don't blame the team for that.
Yeah.
But they're also saying
Yeah.
Matic node should be out in about 2 weeks or so. So you're going to be able to use your strong. We don't know how it'll work exactly, what you'll have to put up as collateral or whatever, but you'll be able to run Matic nodes essentially,
Mhm.
and earn Matic in return for doing that. And then after later, probably I'm guessing next month or some point before the end of the year, they also partnered with Phantom. We'll be able to run Phantom nodes and earn Phantom in return for
Mhm.
that.
Yes. 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 Very interesting stuff going on.
Yeah, definitely.
This is where crypto gets absurd to me because it's like everything is up in the air, and I'm like, so much money's being made from so many different opportunities. I'm like, well, damn. Every single day I go by and I think, okay, 10 new things launched, and now I'm 12 steps behind. So I'm always, um,
I feel the same way, man. I feel the same way, dude. It's like I have this list, so like people are showing like at least a couple things a day, like that I've never heard of. I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
I don't have the time, so I add it to this list. I call it research later. That list just
Mhm.
grows and grows and grows. And I know,
Okay.
based on the 80/20 rule, that 20% of those things I should be buying right now, but I'm not, right? It just, you can't
Yeah.
you can't
Yeah.
be in everything, and people have to be happy. Don't try to be in everything, because you can't.
Yes, it's impossible. And you go into diluting your own rewards because you're over diversified and things like that. So
Definitely.
it's one of those. But so just for the people at home and for myself as well, because I don't know as much about this niche within crypto as you do. What are specifically some DAOs and some masternodes you're looking at and you're like, all right, these projects right here are powerful. And I know we
Yeah.
mentioned some already, but maybe there are a couple others. Maybe you're not even invested in some, but you think highly of them.
Yeah, so let's talk about a couple DAOs. I had made a tweet, I don't know, 4 or 5 days or something like that. Said that, like, hey, I
I saw
found,
that.
yeah, I saw 2 new DAOs that I just thought were going to be monsters. I was researching 3. One of them was Rome DAO. I don't have an opinion on it yet, but I'm researching it. So that wasn't the one
Okay.
I was referring to. The big one, in my opinion, is something called Fiscus DAO. And what Fiscus DAO is doing is, so what I want to look for in DAOs is I want to see something different. Ideally, something unique that nobody's done yet. Like Time is building like a game around theirs, and I want to see something different. Okay, so when I see something really different, I'm like, okay, you got my attention now. You're likely part of that 20%. So what they're going to do is they are, and I've spoken to the CEO. He's a really super smart guy, really nice guy. Once you guys get to see him, I'm sure you'll know him. You'll agree with me. But they are bringing in real world assets. So real estate, equities, commodities, gold and silver, of course, different cryptocurrencies. They're going to use the revenue from those to build the treasury. Okay, so the treasury is backed by off-chain assets that are going to be brought on-chain. Okay, and they're going to be one of the first DAOs that I'm aware of that's going to have a fixed supply, because when we're talking OHM
Mm.
time, inflationary for a reason, right?
Okay.
But this one's going to have a fixed supply of 100 million. So that now you're going to have everything we talked about with the treasury, right? All that good stuff with off-chain assets. Now you have the deflationary aspect of the fixed supply, right? So
My goodness.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I was able, fortunately, to get into like an early sale of that. But when that comes out, I've been told December, middle of December. In my opinion, not
Okay.
financial advice. You might want some stablecoin on the side for that one.
What? So it's just correct. So it's not available and it's not on exchanges yet, but it should be coming out
Yeah.
within
Sorry
a few
about that. I
weeks.
didn't mention that. Yeah, it's not available yet. It's still in the process of coming out. I was told middle of December it will be publicly available. And
And I
what? Go ahead.
don't mean to cut you off,
That's
my
okay.
brother, but I actually really like that because the being in some projects like that extremely early, also considering that we've reached a little bit of a oscillation as far as the market is concerned. We're trading sideways. We're experiencing some chop. So while the market is correcting a little bit, they're developing. We're discussing this now. We're getting educated on it. So once it comes out, then we'll be early. So I always preach in my mentorship program and to my mentees, entry points make truly the biggest difference. And sometimes even just even if you're not 100% familiar with a project, that low entry point,
Sure.
and then doing due diligence after you own it to confirm owning it and confirm your initial investment, that may even be more powerful than anything else, because that's where the ROI is. So
100%.
excellent.
100%. Yeah.
That's it.
I don't ever tell anybody to like FOMO or we call it aping. I guess I don't know where that came from.
AP.
I don't know why to call it aping. So I don't like say to do that, but sometimes you win doing that. Now I always say 80-20 rule again. What's that 20% you really want to know to buy in? I always say get your 20%, get your PhD later. Like, you don't need your PhD to buy something. You don't want to get stuck in an analysis paralysis type of position where, well, I don't know everything there is to know about, so I can't buy it. Meanwhile, the thing's up 40,000% or something because you're trying to do your analysis. So you're 100% right. I mean, entry points are a big deal. So, know enough to know what you're buying, but you don't have to have your PhD in it.
Yes. And for those of you in the chat that are wondering what it's called, it's Fiscus DAO, Fiscus.
Yes.
And you said, just because I'm learning as we go here, you said off-chain assets. So is it kind of like the tokenization of real world assets, if you will, like real estate, like some stocks and maybe commodities too? Is that what we're looking at here?
100%. Yeah. So real estate currently, equities, commodities, they've discussed gold and silver. Of course, different crypto assets. So, it's very technical how they're going to bring those on chain through smart contracts and things like that. There's a little bit of a debate. Some people say, well, it's not really backed, but I'm like, okay, but they're using the revenue to buy the crypto assets to bring into the treasury. So as this real estate bubble, which we know there is one, continues to grow, that's going to generate more revenue, which is going to grow the treasury. So it's kind of a tide that rises all ships. So yeah, it's off-chain assets that are going to be brought on-chain.
Now, when I think of this, like DAO specifically, I think of like a reserve asset kind of in a way,
Yeah.
right? And I think backing an asset, and it literally reminds me of what the SDR is trying to be, or was supposed to be, right? Like, it's a world reserve currency that's backed by a basket of currencies, but all those currencies are going to hell. And there's plenty of speculation that, and I've speculated this as well, that XRP could be an ESDR that kind of backs all these the fiat currencies, if you will. That's still speculation and up in the air, but that's something that could potentially happen. So my question is there the possibility that regulators could say, all right, you guys are looking to create a new basket of reserves that are real, and we hate things that are real. You must follow our system. We're going to try and regulate you. Okay.
Yeah. How dare you?
Yeah. How dare you try and get some sound money in here?
What's wrong with you? Yeah, it's always possible, right? Kind of what I think, and I think we all agree with this, is that government doesn't innovate; they regulate. Okay, they regulate, then they adopt. Okay, once they realize the regulation doesn't totally kill it, then it's like, okay, now we're paying attention. Maybe we can adopt this in some level, right? Like XRP, like whether the SEC thing is controlled opposition to purposely suppress it, or they're really trying to go after and to control it, I don't know, but they'll give a black eye first, and then when they realize a black eye doesn't work, then they're like, maybe we need to actually bring this in before we get crushed by this, right? So we know governments don't innovate anything. They always somehow find a way to merge with the public sector. I mean, yeah, they could certainly come in and say, hey, we don't like this, but I'm trying to think, like, I guess they could create laws to stop DAOs, even if the U.S. government does that, like, XRP is still tradable around the world, even though it's not, tradable in certain areas other than Uphold and whatnot. But like, unless the entire world just converges on one thing, I think it's hard to completely regulate something, especially in the case of these DAOs where the teams are anonymous, right? Now, I know the government can probably find out who they are, but in general, they're anonymous, which I know was not by mistake. People hated that, but that may actually, in a way, be the saving grace if you don't know who the people are. So kind of the way I look at it, man, is, it's certainly possible. I think we play in the sandbox where we have to be aware of what the risks are. So, don't be afraid when a wave comes and, knocks over your sandcastle.
Yeah. It's one of those things where people who are self-righteous about the anonymity of teams, they're literally like invested in an asset class whose founder is God knows who. It could be the damn government for all we know, right? I don't know. So
it's
it is what it is.
I would say Occam's razor. Occam's razor. The simplest answer is probably who it is.
Yeah, man. It's this is an incredible space, and I see some new nonsense every day that I fall in love with. So it's great.
Hey, man, you gotta love it, right?
Yeah, but let's see. So Fiscus is one DAO that you're really a fan of. Any others?
I'm looking into something called Pi DAO, Pi DAO. So because I'll give you the good and the bad. The good is they seem to be the only DAO that I'm aware of that's integrating NFTs. Okay. Now, how they're being integrated, they don't really show and they don't really say, at least not publicly yet, but you can see all the NFTs on their dashboard when you go in there. So there's that. And when I spoke to the developers, they have a lot of experience in the gaming aspect. So could there be a possible gaming and metaverse play with this DAO as well as NFTs? So I like it for that aspect. It is available. It is on Binance Smart Chain. It is at a very low entry price like Hector was. Not to shill it, but I'd say maybe not bad, but I'd say cause for concern is the team isn't very responsive, at least not to me. They seem to be based somewhere in Asia. I don't know where, but I've ran e-commerce businesses, so I can kind of tell when I'm talking to that culture, and especially the time frames they respond, I can kind of tell. So the team is, borderline, but the project, if they can implement gaming's metaverse aspects and NFT aspects into a DAO, that could be big.
Just a question that I have for you. What's the ticker on that?
That is PID.
PID. DAO. And by the way, guys, nothing is, when I mention these projects, it's not necessarily an endorsement. And this is education right now because I'm literally learning as we go too.
Yeah, and so I'll be honest with you, man. Like, I hate going public with things too early, and I hate going public with things too late. So when I see a project like this, I'm like, okay, I like this, but I feel like I need to be in it with my own. It's like I'll never promote something unless I own it, and I'll never promote something just because someone's paying me. I'll never do that. So like when I see something like this, I'm like, okay, it's a good entry point, but I need to understand this project a little bit more. So, I'm releasing that to your audience here, but I like it. I think it's got some unique aspects. Let's just see if the team can execute on them.
Okay, interesting. Any others before we get into the audience?
Nothing at the moment, no.
Nothing. Okay, no worries. Let's see. So this is the part where we're going to open it up to the audience and we can see a couple questions that you guys have in here. So we have one question that says, how can investors ensure that a DAO's code has been audited and is fit for purpose?
Yeah, so when you look at these DAOs, like I'm looking at Hector DAO right now, go under their documentation, and under their documentation, you will see on the left side, you can scroll down, and if there's been any audits, you can see them there. They will, audits is one of those things that if they have them, they're going to display them proudly. If they don't, you're probably not going to find them. right? I don't know offhand if Hector itself has actually been audited. I want to say it has, but I don't know yet. You know, OHM has been audited, and since they're a fork, the idea is just indirectly audited, but kind of, sort of. I would prefer to actually see the DAO itself audited. I don't see an audit yet for Hector DAO, but that's, if you're looking at these DAOs, that's what you want to do.
Yes, yes. Excellent, excellent. Now, someone says, I have a question in regards to strong nodes. David Moss is always doing AMAs on Saturdays, and I feel he is always trying to be involved in the community regardless of the criticism. Where do you see this project moving forward? I think we answered that. I think we did answer that.
Yeah, I mean, I could just answer real quickly. Like, I like to see the involvement from the CEO. You know, I once read that, if I'm not a salesman by any means, but I just remember this, and it said that, hey, if you want to be a better salesman, believe in what you're selling. Okay, which is one of the reasons why I never promote a project without owning it, because I want to believe in what I'm sharing with you. So if you want to, quote, get someone to buy something, believe in what you're sharing with them. And I think David Moss, like, I believe Strongblock is his passion. I believe this is what he's living to do. And that energy is very infectious. So,
without a doubt, I agree with that perspective, by the way. That's priceless. Let's see. What about the others which have high APSs in the millions, like Spartacus or FHM or APYs, I think you meant?
Yeah, I think you meant APYs. One that's coming to mind is Snowbank. I don't know if you remember seeing that when it first came out. And it had a yield with so many numbers. The numbers couldn't even fit on the screen, right? So it's kind of like, you know, I don't even know what the number, I couldn't even figure out what the decimal name was for this thing because it was so crazy. So what do I think about that? You know, when you have something so new like that, and I could be wrong because I'm not like creating these protocols, right? I think you can kind of start off almost anywhere you want if you have very little assets in a treasury, okay? Because it's so nascent and so young and so new. I don't like yield drawing the investor alone. Obviously, we're in this to make money. Yeah. Obviously, we want to see a return, but I want to see, yeah, you got the yield, okay, that's good. You don't need to make it astronomical like that. I mean, astronomical. It's so funny because 500,000 is like not considered astronomical anymore, right? But I want to see, like, do something with the project that's unique in addition to the yield. It kind of makes me a little bit uneasy to get into something that's got like 900 digits across the screen. I'm a little weary of that. And I did have one of those projects actually reach out to me personally. I just said, no, thank you. Personal preference. If you guys want to ape into that, by all means.
Without a doubt. Smart. I get asked for people to show projects all the time too. And the rule for me is that I'm not an affiliate of anything. And I just, if you're a great project, I'll show you to the moon because you're a great project. But if you're not, like, it is what it is, you know. But,
yeah, dude, I can only imagine with your following how many projects you get shown to you. It must be ridiculous.
It's crazy. It's crazy, especially the new NFTs. I'm like, wait, guys, hold up. But let me see. Yeah. Okay, so this is actually a me question because I'm just trying to understand how this works.
Sure.
So the yield and the price of the asset, is there some type of correlation there where as the price rises, the yield increases a little bit? Is that kind of what goes on?
Yeah, kind of. So the way it works is that the yield is going to be I should preface this with a lot of these newer DAOs. A lot of things could be affecting the yield out of the gate, at least for the first maybe few weeks until it stabilizes. But generally, once it's a little bit more mature, the yield is going to be correlated to the amount staked. Okay, so what you'll do is if you see people selling, the only way to sell, like let's just take Hector DAO for instance, the only way to sell is to unstake and sell. So as the amount that is unstaking goes up, that means the amount that's staked is going down. As the amount is staked going down, the yield generally rises to stop what they call a bank run. If we think of a bank run in the traditional finance, everybody goes to the bank at the same time, pulls their money out, and eventually someone's not going to get their money. Not that they have it anyway, but In DAOs like these, for instance, the quote unquote equivalent bank run would be everybody unstaking and selling at one time. But what happens is the more people that unstake, the higher the yield goes to compensate for that. So the only way to sell is to unstake, which is effectively what's changing that yield.
Okay. Okay. Oh, so that's interesting. That's interesting. Dude, I'm trying to, I need to wrap my mind around how they're able to offer like 500,000%. Even with OHM, like 8,000%. Like how is that possible? How is that possible that they're able to give this? I just don't understand.
Well, you have this massive war chest in the Treasury, right? And you know, there's a few things that are going on here. I don't know if I got into this, but with the Treasury, you got all these assets. Okay, we don't need to name them, but there's a lot of assets that comes in through the bonding that we saw. So they take the asset.
Okay.
So what you've done effectively is you've given them an asset. Okay, that asset is appreciating in price. So let's call it Ethereum. Okay, you give Ethereum to my Treasury. You know, part of that gets split up into other assets that back the coin, but Ethereum is rising in value. Over time, it will rise in value, especially if you compare it to, you know, over the summer. I don't remember where we dropped, but we're like double from that point. So you have the price appreciation, number one. Number two, what they're doing with the Treasury is they're actually taking the assets, going out into the world of DeFi, and they're earning a return on the Treasury assets via yield. Okay, so it's sort of like DeFi within DeFi, if that makes sense. So this Treasury just keeps growing exponentially, and you want to take this a step further. A lot of these, like you take time, they're adding OHM into their Treasury and they're staking it. Okay, so now it's getting kind of ridiculous. Yeah. So you got this Treasury that just grows exponentially. You know, we're talking compound interest here, so that's why they're able to hand out this kind of yield, because the Treasury is just going nuts in most cases.
What's going on?
Mind blown a little.
So it's like, okay, so now we have other projects that are that are forks of OHM that are now staking OHM in their treasuries to back their assets. So this is
so
this.
Yeah, sorry. So
go ahead.
So you have that, but you also have the original assets. They're going out to it's Curve is one of them for sure. X Sushi is another one. And they're actually earning a yield on like the ETH, all this other kind of stuff that they have in their yield, in their treasury, I should say. So they're earning yield on that. Then you got forks of OHM. They're like, we love this treasury thing. We're going to bring OHM and we're going to stake it in there. Okay. What if Hector, for example, says, you know what, we're going to take OHM and time and bring it in. Okay. It gets kind of ridiculous after a while, doesn't it?
Yeah. Let's see. This is what I like to call DeFi-ception, if you will.
I like that. You got to trademark that now.
Let's go. I'll go to town on it today. But let's see. It says, can Showtime please explain that people should be careful of the high APY versus the bond discount prices?
Versus the bond. Oh, yeah. So if we look at Hector, for example, where are we now? Let me refresh this because I don't want to. We are 500,000%. Okay. So we're 500,000%. What you'll notice is you have on that staking page, I'm going to get my MetaMask connected as we're talking here, but on that staking page, you will have a value that will tell you what your next rebase percentage is. It's called next reward yield. So a rebase happens every 8 hours, right? So in other words, you earn every 8 hours is what a rebase is, also called an epoch. But you see next reward yield is I'm looking at the wrong thing, my bad. Look at ROI 5-day rate. It currently says 12.42% on staking for Hector, right? So that means you're going to earn a 12% return in 5 days. Okay, but you look at the bond and you're seeing 12% give or take. So it's like, okay, if I bond, I'm going to earn 12%. If I stake, I'm going to earn 12%, right? So you kind of, what you want to do is you want to play this to where the ROI is higher on one side or the other. Like with Ohm, for instance, you'll see the 5-day return on the staking page might be something like 7%, but you can only bond and get an ROI of 3%. Both of them are going to take 5 days. So you want to go with the one that's going to give you the higher ROI in that instance. So I think that's what the question is referring to.
Yes. Excellent. We have a question in here that asks, what trends do you see in managing and tracking taxable events when using AMMs, DAOs, DeFi?
Well, there's no easy way to track anything with taxes in crypto. Let's just be upfront about that. I mean, if you look at
I literally had an interview with Token Tax like earlier today, and they were just like, they were even frustrated with a couple things, but it's tough. It's tough.
I've used Coinly, and there's a lot of manual work you still have to do. Okay, so when we're talking things like rebases, first of all, let's be upfront about something. When we look at these DAOs, I'm not saying the IRS couldn't track this, but I don't know how you track these 8-hour rebases. It's pretty much impossible. There's nothing keeping track of that. Okay, so to try and say you're going to be taxed every 8 hours, it'd be impossible to keep track of that. And as these protocols get more and more innovative and they change with DeFi and rebases and compound interest, like I don't see this software keeping up. I really don't. As unfortunate as it is, you're just going to have to take the best and easiest, most logical route you can to track it and kind of leave it at that. I have not found anything. I did talk to somebody before this interview. I have no idea how good the project is that is going to be tracking this. I think it's called GMI Community. I was talking to the CEO just before I hopped on, so I don't know a lot about it. I'm just throwing that out there. Their Discord's tiny. They're apparently going to have some sort of tracking software for all these DAOs and different DeFi projects. So maybe something to keep in mind. But otherwise, I got to be honest with you, it's not a perfect system. Hopefully by the end of this year, I can put a video up and kind of make it at least reasonable for people. It's kind of what I'm going to work on.
And just a quick disclaimer, guys. We're not accountants. We don't know anything about taxes. We're just trying our best to figure out what the hell is going on. So
Thank you. You said it better than I can.
Excellent. Now, let's see. Okay, another good question. As Strong moves to the Polygon network in the near future, do you see the use of Strong NFTs to retain the rewards even when they will be slashed in the future?
Well, Strong's not going to Polygon. They are going to allow you to build Strong nodes that will support the Polygon blockchain, but they themselves, I mean, they could, I guess, theoretically just forklift everything to Polygon, but you got to be very careful doing that. You could break something, and that would not be good. That could kill a project. So I think the concept that David Moss has talked about has been building their own blockchain and allowing their token, whether it's the primary or the secondary token, to be cross-chain so that it can support other blockchains. I think that's kind of the direction they're going into than actually moving over to Polygon. What was the second part of that question? I apologize.
You see, it was removed.
Something about NFTs.
Okay. Do you see the use of Strong NFTs to retain the rewards even when they will be slashed in the future?
Yeah, so they've talked about a decay model. I think we went over that. And all nodes will get decayed at the same, different rates, but they're all going to get decayed. The NFTs are going to add a certain amount of Strong to each node. So even as it decays, you're going to maintain that additional amount that the NFT gives you. That's not going to go away. But there's not going to be a sudden halvening. Let's just keep that in mind. I guess they could do it, but it would not be good because they've said they were not going to do it multiple times.
Yes. And this is just a quick little technical question. Is Fiscus DAO, is there a ticker for that on CoinMarketCap? Not yet.
I doubt it. I can look. I don't think so because it's not out yet, so there wouldn't be any price.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think so. Not yet.
Now, again, this is a personal question from me to you.
Sure.
Are you going to town on this Flare Finance and Songbird at the moment?
Yeah, so I am going to town on Songbird, of course. Free tokens, why wouldn't you? So, yeah, I've got that delegated, and I'm not. I don't say this to sound like I'm bragging, but I have enough passive income. I don't need to pull Songbird personally. So I don't intend to sell any Songbird anytime soon. I'm just compounding and rewrapping and redelegating. I'm just doing that whole thing. Yeah. When Flare launches, I keep saying, I said that for the last year when Flare launches. Hopefully it launches soon. But when Flare launches, I will definitely go to town and be making videos and all sorts of stuff, how to take advantage of that for sure.
Excellent. And are you using the new Flare finance, experimental finance portion with Songbird as well? Because I've heard that the yields over there is incredible, absolutely tremendous.
I'm not. Could you explain to me, like, this is like a beta type thing, or what is this?
Essentially. So what I'll say is that Patty XRP and Mickey B Fresh have made 3 tutorial videos so far on how to go about the process of using that. But essentially, Flare Finance is a business built on top of the Flare network. I think you know that.
Yeah.
And right now, this is just like the Songbird portion, or the Songbird version of the Flare Finance.
Right.
That will be launching eventually. So that's the limit that's my extent of that as well, because I haven't done it yet. I've just been told by a mentee who is actively doing it that the rewards are insane. So just a little something else that you could just be going to town with.
Hey, man, I'll add it to my research. No, yeah, that would be pushed to the top for sure. I'll look into it. Thank you for that.
Jordan, can you just put those 3 Mickey B Fresh videos in the chat, just because they were tremendous resources, and for everyone at home or listening in or watching the replay, I'd recommend doing that as well. We probably diluted some of the rewards, but this is what happens when you care about people.
You care too much, Bull. That's your problem.
Too much. I should have kept it hush hush. Let's see. We have. Okay, this is a good question. What will have better sustainability in the next 12 months, Strong or DAOs?
That's a good question. I don't know if one's going to have a better sustainability model than the other. I think they're just different. Actually, it's interesting because I've tried to get this question to, as a matter of fact, I know it was asked of David Moss. Why not adopt Olympus Pro for Strong? Bring in the revenue as a service, bring in their model they already have, just bring it in, and that way you can back Strong. That way you've got the basket of assets, you're earning the yield, it's easy to pay people, there are no rewards. And he's basically said they are building a treasury. So they're kind of already doing the same thing. Maybe they're adopting Olympus Pro, I have no idea, but it sounds like they're on the path to building a treasury of their own. Now, is that a treasury that's going to have the same functionality as a lot of these DAOs where it backs and does all? I don't know, but they're building a treasury already. So when I kind of look at the DAOs and I look at Strong, I kind of see they're both equally as sustainable. Maybe right now, not so much, but I think moving forward, they'll be equally as sustainable personally.
I think, to me, all I heard was DAO master nodes.
Well, hey, let me ask you this, so I don't confuse anybody. What's the part maybe that I could explain better? Because I'd love to explain it better if I could.
Oh man, it's just so it's like it just seemed like they were trying to build a treasury similar to DAOs, but it's still a master node. So
yeah, I think they're just going to basically, to keep it simple, they're going to create their own type of treasury in Strongblock that will support the token, and it supports the token, which we know the token. Supporting the token would be kind of autonomous from the nodes, but not really. They'd be kind of directly related. Okay,
that makes more sense. Let's see. Do you have a not this question. This kind of past my full understanding. Is there a site I can get a layman's understanding of what's going on? It is something I would like to learn so I can make passive income.
I don't mean to. I really, apologize in advance for shilling my channel, but I do go over, like, what we're talking here is sort of a 1,000-foot view, right? Where we're talking about the overall concept, but Strong, Olympus, I should say, and time specifically. I do like a hour-long deep dive, how it works, what it is, what's going on, and then I make a whole separate video about how to get involved. So I don't mean to show my channel, but that's like the only thing that comes to mind is perhaps consider going and watching those. It's a lot of time, but you know what? You want to invest time. That's how you make money, and that's just how it works. They're directly related.
Exactly. And hey, you guys can always use the 2x speed feature and go to town on that. It's a learning curve, and I do understand, but he does explain it well. I have seen the videos, and it's very well done.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So, a question regarding Fiscus launch.
Sure.
Klima launched fairly recently. Price point was raised considerably at launch. Are we likely to experience the same with Fiscus? And may I ask what you paid pre-sale? You don't have to get into that.
Yeah, I won't get into that, but I mean, there's a lot of people that got pre-sale, NFTs, whatever, and they all paid different kinds of prices. So what I paid wouldn't make any difference. But I do know, I heard, I can't confirm, I guess, that people who started off with Klima in a pre-sale did pay $5, I think. I can't confirm
what?
that. That's what I heard. I don't know how true it is. I don't know how they were limited. They might have only been able to buy 10. I don't know. But that did go as high as 3,700 the other day, because I was looking into this and I'm like, I wonder if Fiscus could pull a similar move. This is what I think. I think the more innovative the DAO, the bigger the move. That's just my opinion. So when you look at Klima is very different than anything else. I mean, carbon credits, or carbon offsets and things like that they're bringing in, like that's very unique. You know, forget Mark Cuban investing in it. I mean, it doesn't matter, but that brings attention to it. Big names bring attention to it. Something different and unique and innovative. That was the first one, I think, on Polygon, if I'm not mistaken. First kind of DAO. So when I look at Fiscus, I say that may be even more innovative than Klima in a lot of ways, right? I mean, in a lot of ways. No, I'm not saying it will pull a similar move, but I could see it pulling a similar move only because it is so unique and different. What it'll launch at, I have absolutely no idea. People paid all sorts of prices pre-sale. So, and by the way, I should mention, I was talking about it before I bought it. I just want to be very clear about that. It wasn't like I bought it, I'm going to pump my bags. I don't play that kind of game. I was talking to the CEO and promoting it before I got in on before I even knew I can get in on that kind of thing. So just to be transparent about that.
Very nice. Now, here's a good question. Does the market cycle affect investing in any of these DAOs?
Well, go ahead.
Now, let me just rephrase that a little way to make it more clear. Does the fact that something is in a bull or bear part of a cycle affect like the treasury or the price or things, the sustainability of these things?
Well, definitely with the DAOs, being in a bull or bear market is going to affect the treasury because they're holding those assets, right? So price appreciation is growing the treasury. Price crash will drop the treasury. I mean, they're doing other things in addition to price appreciation. That's a small part of it, but it is a part of it. So we have to take that into consideration. We also have to take into consideration people are going to sell when the prices are crashing. That's just what human psychology. Everyone sees green candles, they get excited, they buy the top. They see red candles, they get fearful, they sell the bottom. That's human psychology. And I think that's what you and I are trying to help people with, fight against. But when we look at the DAOs, originally they seemed, early on when I was following OHM, it seemed to be doing the opposite of what the market was doing. It was just something I noticed. I said, this is really weird. The market's going up. This is going down. Market's going down. This is going. It's kind of interesting. I think it's following the market a little bit more now than it did then. I've had these kind of conversations with other people, like, what do you think a bear market's going to do with a lot of this passive income stuff? I could make a bullish and a bearish argument. I mean, the bearish argument is just simply everything crashes. There's no exception, right? Like, I don't care how loved your token is. I don't care how much utility it has. It's going to probably crash. Everything does. But the bullish case I could make is people who took all these profits are going to have to park them somewhere. They're not going to put it in the bank and earn 0.1% when inflation is closer to 15 to 20%, right? So what are they going to do with these profits? Oh, I remember that Olympus thing that was popular with the yield, and I remember Strong, I remember all this stuff. Maybe I should put some profits there to earn a return. Like, that makes sense to me, but I think personally we'll see some sort of crash. And if there is a bullish case for it, it'll be a short-lived crash, is what I think will happen.
Interesting. Nice perspective, bro. I like that. I probably think so too, to be honest with you, but things are still speculative at the moment.
Right, sure.
Let's see. What do we do with a heck after you claim and retake it? How does one turn the heck to swap on Spooky Swap for USDC?
How do you turn the heck into USDC via Spooky Swap, or what do you do after that?
Yeah. What do you do is, I think essentially he's asking, how do we sell?
Okay. Yeah.
Hector.
Good question. So think about the way you onboarded your currency into Heck. Now reverse it. That's all you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
So you brought US dollars in somehow. Even if you swapped another crypto around and you didn't actually put, like some point you put US dollars into crypto, you onboarded that. So if that's through Coinbase, you just need to take your Heck, swap it into probably in that instance Phantom. Okay, get Phantom out to an exchange that will accept Phantom. Sell that for whatever stablecoin you want. Send that back to Coinbase. Sell it and deposit the money. It just kind of depends on where you started and where you ended. Just take that and go reverse.
Okay. Got it. What exchange could we purchase Fiscus on in December? I'm sure you don't have an answer yet.
Yeah, I don't know. It's supposed to be on Avalanche though, is where it's supposed to launch. But as far as exchange, I mean, it's probably just going to be Trader Joe. It's a decentralized exchange for Avalanche.
Trader Joe.
I heard that. It's really funny. I start typing Trader Joe, and I keep going to Trader Joe's website, like the actual market. I'm like, I don't want to go to Trader Joe. It's funny some of these words we use.
Oh my goodness. Now, I think, Jordan, do you have any questions you would like to ask Showtime very quickly, my brother? Because I feel like this is where you really like having fun. All this man likes is passive income, interest, earning yield, and all that. So Jordan, let's go to town, bro.
Sounds like
let's
my
see
guy.
what you got.
Ironically, I don't. And the reason why is because I'm kind of blown away because Ripple have just announced live breaking news. Their partnership with the Republic of Palau to explore the country's first national digital currency using the XRPL.
Oh, interesting.
Do they say what the partnership, like who it's with?
The Republic of Palau. So I'm probably butchering how that's pronounced.
Interesting.
You got
what?
Go ahead.
Essentially, what you're telling me, Jordan, is you weren't paying any attention at all. Wow, incredible. Incredible. We got him. Hey, I always tell everybody, hey, furlough's always a day away, bro. Always a day away. I'm so sorry.
Well, it sounds like you got content for your next video, Bull. You already know what to talk about.
No, that's great. That's incredible. No, that's incredible breaking news.
Yeah,
hey, that's what happens in all these interviews. Like we see things like this, so it's incredible. But I mean, personally, I don't necessarily have more questions. I think you've done a great job at explaining as much as you could. Right? It's like this, like as much as we're able to. But I guess we can cap off this interview with if anything you think you should bring up or needs to be said for just people at home or in general.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I love following you guys. Your course, if people aren't subscribed to your course, I don't even know what they're doing. They're not doing crypto, I can tell you that. So thank you so much for having me. I love following you guys and the content you're putting out. Like I said, been following you for some time. And I know a lot of the stuff we're talking about here sounds complex and it sounds very convoluted, and we're talking about nodes and DAOs and treasuries and backing and all this other kind of crazy stuff. What I will tell you is that what I've found is that in life, the more roadblocks that are put up in front of you and the more you jump over those roadblocks, the farther ahead you're going to be of other people. It's when it's too easy is you should be a little bit concerned. When something's a little bit complex, look at that as you have an opportunity to jump ahead of the kind of retail crowd, in that your success will be that much more magnified if you can just stay the course. So what I would just encourage people is, you know what, sometimes things in life just require a little bit more work. They require making that extra jump over that other roadblock. They require falling down and getting back up, and that's just part of what makes your success even that much sweeter. So I would say don't be intimidated by anything being difficult. Take that as a challenge, overcome that, and I'll be happy to help if I can.
Without a doubt, bro. And I think to cap off this interview for the day, what I'll say is I saw a tweet by a community member on Twitter that said they asked Flare Finance if they could make things like more user friendly and less tech savvy, if you will. And Flare Finance said no. Right. This is very much a skill-oriented game that we're playing in right now. If you lack the skills, you're not going to get the rewards. With those skills will come a big learning curve, and all that means is that you have the opportunity to take advantage and put fate into your own hands, if you will. Your fate is in your own hands. I know this is a lot of technical jargon here. I don't necessarily always know what's going on, right? I'm not the tech dude. I'm the investor dude that somehow stumbled upon this technology early. But if you guys want to continue to dig deeper into it, even if you don't, now you guys can at least passively discuss it and have it on your radar. Showtime, it was an incredible time, and trust me, we will be in touch, and it's a pleasure to have you in this community, my brother.
It's a pleasure, brother. Thank you for having me. Thanks so much. Great meeting you two. You two are the same off camera as you are on camera, which is awesome.
No doubt, man. That's for sure. I'm sorry, Jordan, for being myself. I really am.
Rightly so.
But without a doubt, guys. All right. It was a pleasure. And to everyone at home, peace out and good night.
Take care.
Bye-bye.